What's happening, everybody? Hopefully everybody has weathered the freezing rain and storms that we had this last weekend. It was very uncharacteristic weather here in Myrtle Beach, to say the least. And for those of you that are stuck in the Northeast right now, dealing with snow and cold, I'm sorry. I'm just no other way to say it. Today it was about 50 degrees here, sunny, and absolutely beautiful Myrtle Beach weather again. But welcome everybody to start joining in tonight. Come on in. Let us know where you're watching from this evening. I've got an exciting, fun show, I think, for us tonight. I'm going to bring on here in just a few minutes my friend and colleague and somebody that I've gotten to know pretty well over the last few years, Scott. Scott moved here to Myrtle Beach and lives half the year here in Myrtle Beach, half the time in Seattle, Washington. And so we're going to have a fun discussion with him, kind of find out why he chose picking a place 3,000 plus miles away from his hometown to buy another home and live part of the year. We're going to discuss some of the differences and some of the weird things that he may have experienced along the way. Because I know a lot of you guys that are watching this, you're moving here from outside the state of South Carolina, and you may not quite understand the way things work here. And so we're going to have Scott share some of his frustrations along the way. But I see people starting to come in to the chat. And like I said, guys, tell me where you're watching from tonight. Tell me, and if you could, tell me one other thing. What is the temperature where you're at tonight? I'd love to know this because my guess is you're in freezing. But anyway, in the meantime, let me go over here. I'm going to unmute. And I'm going to bring in my buddy Scott. What's happening, Scott?
Hey, Jeremy. How you doing? Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, everybody, I want you to meet Scott Comey. Scott, you tell everybody. I don't need to do an introduction. Tell everyone a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you're about.
So I am from the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, just north of Seattle. We've got my wife and I actually own a few RE/MAX offices and actually also a mortgage company up there. And I don't sell real estate anymore, although I did for many years. I was very successful in my real estate business. But yeah, I had about 4.5 years ago decided to buy a second home in Myrtle Beach. And that is, I think, going to come up later. So I'll let Jeremy ask me more questions about that later. But that's a little bit about me. I also have a podcast called Turn the Dial that has been pretty successful that my wife and I do every week. So
Awesome. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into how the heck you decided on South Carolina and even more so Myrtle Beach as a place of buying another home. But we're getting a bunch of people who are jumping in here. And let's just say, sup, Jason? Thanks for joining us tonight. Taz says, was just thinking about doing that. After living here for 4 months, I miss Pennsylvania, just not the weather. I don't blame you, man. Although this weekend probably made you feel a little bit like being back home. You know, I went out Saturday morning with my kids, Scott. They wanted to check it out. The dogs, first off, we opened the back door. The dogs go out. They get to they're not stepping on that grass. They didn't know what it was, and they held it in so we finally had to go out and push them out into the grass to get them to go to the bathroom because they did not want to be in that sleet and ice and everything. My car had like a 1/4 inch of ice on it, and luckily we got it thawed. Unfortunately, for those of you that are not here locally, Myrtle Beach in our area did not really see snow. We saw a little bit of freezing rain on Friday night and a little bit of sleet. People west out towards Conway, Ainer area, they did see a little bit of snow, but it wasn't much. Right. So let's see who else is here tonight with us. Jason's watching from Tennessee. Sup, Jason from Tennessee. James is watching from Southern New Jersey. Hey, James, we talked the other day on the phone. I remember that. Hope you're doing well. We also have Arnold jumping in tonight from New Braunfels, Texas. You know, you guys got hit in Texas, what was it, last year with that really crazy, weird ice and snowstorm out there. Your area is probably a lot like ours. We're not quite prepared for it. Luckily, we didn't have it as bad as you did the other year.
I just talked to somebody from New Braunfels earlier today, and they were saying that just recently they had temperatures in the 30, 31, 32 degrees which for them is super cold, right? And it pretty much shut down their area. So yeah, they're experiencing a little bit of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was crazy. For those of you that aren't here local, let me tell you what happened with the winter storm we had last week. So first off, a week in advance, the weather stations were all freaking out about wintry mix weather coming our way. So on Wednesday, the schools decided that Friday schools would be canceled. All kids would work virtual. So thankfully, my wife has a job that's fairly flexible with her work. She was able to stay home with 3 kids. Now, it did not even start to have precipitation here in the Myrtle Beach area till I think it was like 6, 7 o'clock at night when it actually started to. Actually, I think that was when we actually got below freezing to even start this process. But everything was shut down. I shared a photo on my YouTube community tab. If you guys haven't seen it, go over there, check it out. She went Thursday to Aldi to get her weekly grocery run. It looked like a bomb went off in the potato chip aisle. Everything was decimated. There were just boxes everywhere laying the shelves completely bare on the potato chip aisle. It was crazy, to say the least. Let's see. Taz is joining in from Conway tonight where it's 40 degrees. Yep. He said he's in HVAC and was working Saturday and Sunday till 1 a.m. fixing heat pumps. Yeah, I'm sure you were busy this weekend. You know, down here, guys, we don't run our heat very often. So when we have to turn it on, it doesn't know how to act. He said it hurt. Yep. And Arnold says, yeah, it got cold. So, guys, as we get talking tonight, if you have questions for me, for Scott, or moving to the area, or things you want to ask him why he chose here, or some of the crazy things that he experienced in buying here, or things that you may be concerned about, I'm going to let him discuss those because he's recently gone through this process and bought property here in Myrtle Beach. And so he can answer your questions and your growing pains on it. And it's not me, it's somebody else telling it for you. But Scott, tell me, you own a house in Seattle, Washington. You've lived there. Your happy life is there. You, your wife, your pups, everything's there in Seattle. Why in the world? I mean, I get maybe you wanted to have a warmer climate, but why wouldn't you check out areas closer to home? You know, I know a lot of people from the Pacific Northwest, don't they pick houses in like either California or Texas or Arizona, something like that? What in the world made you pick not only South Carolina, but even more so the Myrtle Beach area?
Yeah, we definitely are kind of an anomaly. I've come to realize in Myrtle Beach, there's not a lot of people here from the Seattle area that have relocated here or even bought second homes here. There's a couple I've run into, but in general, you're right. It's very rare. Most of the people in Washington State for second homes, they do buy in Arizona. That tends to be the number one spot for warm weather to kind of snowbird in. But Renee and I, my wife and I, we, as I mentioned earlier, we've got some RE/MAX offices that we own up in Seattle and a mortgage company. And for us, we wanted to be kind of a plane ride away, like really as far as we can away from our brokerages to really feel like we're getting a chance to kind of unplug. So we started to look actually we did look actually a little bit in Texas, but we also looked in Florida and did not love a lot of what we were finding down there for neighborhoods and houses and stuff like that. And so what ended up happening was we actually came to an event. We asked if we can come to an event that Jeremy's office hosts every year. It's kind of like a big awards banquet here in Myrtle Beach. And while we were visiting that event, which we were only in town for a couple of days to do, we happened to notice the cost of living being so much different than it is in Seattle. Now in Seattle, the median home price in King County, which is where Seattle is, I'll give you a little taste of it here. So for last month, for December 2021, the median home price in Seattle was $815,000. So when we come here and we see houses at the time, this was 4.5 years ago, at the time, around 200,000, some a little under 200,000. We eventually bought ours in the mid 300s. Um, it is so night and day in terms of what we could have gotten in the Seattle market, or even in Eastern Washington, which is another area where a lot of people in Seattle tend to kind of migrate in the wintertime, where it's a little bit warmer. But yeah, so that's kind of what initially got us looking. Is we wanted to have a second home that we can kind of unplug and kind of work still, which Renee and I, when we're in Myrtle Beach, we are still working pretty much full time, but from here, right? So this has been our snowbird area for the last 4.5 winter seasons now. And actually with COVID, we've actually been here mostly full time the last couple of years, because there had been no reason really with our offices having limited access and limited hours and stuff. There's been no reason for us to be there full time. So we've been here actually more full time these last couple of years. So that's a little bit about our journey out here. So
interesting. You mentioned while you were talking about median price, and you said it was 800 and something. Here's median sales price in Myrtle Beach right now, $250,434. Yes, it has gone up tremendously. Just to give you all an idea, Scott mentioned that he bought his house in the mid threes. That builder right now is selling the same model homes for probably 5 to 6, maybe even a little bit more in that development. So prices have gone up some, but still, even in comparison, it's way, way less. So Scott, let me ask this. You just comparing kind of your house of what you have now compared to what you have in Seattle. Your house here is probably, what would you say, a third of the cost of your one in Seattle?
Well, for sure, when we bought this house, yes, it was. So we have since sold that house because we realized we didn't need that big of a house out there. Okay. But yeah, you're right. It was about a third of the price. But I'll say this too. Another thing that we've done since we've been coming out here back and forth a lot is 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago, actually, we decided to also buy 2 investment properties, 2 rental properties out here. We paid $200,000 for each of those houses. The rents that we're collecting on those, what's interesting is we had a very similar size and looking home in the Seattle market that we just sold for almost $500,000. Yeah. And the rent amounts that we were getting in that house in Seattle was just a little bit more. I'm talking $150 more per month than what we're getting for our rental properties here. So we actually are under contract right now on a couple more rental properties because we found Myrtle Beach to be a great place to buy full-time rental properties. I know everybody wants to do the VRBO thing. That's a different conversation, but we talked with some property management companies out here that your company is affiliated with, actually, and Stay and Play. And they had told us that they are hurting for full-time rentals. They have a lot of people on waiting lists and stuff. So we ended up buying a couple more because you can get, the value is so great.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up. You're segueing me into my next live video in 2 weeks from now, because I will actually, in 2 weeks, for anybody who's interested in understanding how is the rental market here, what about, one of the things, Scott, that I share with people all the time is this: they're thinking about retiring to our area, buying their forever home. As you can see from that graph I showed a few minutes ago of median sales price, it's just continually going up, 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 and up. And I don't see anything showing signs of that slowing down. So buy your property now, rent it for the next 3 to 4 years, 3 to 5 years, whatever your plan is to move here. Put that long-term tenant in place, have them help pay down your mortgage, build up more equity in the home. And then when you're ready to move, you already have your house here instead of waiting. People who I talked to a year and a half ago, they're really sad right now that they didn't do that, because they could have got that house for $200,000 to $250,000, and now they're coming back trying to find a home for $250,000, and it doesn't exist anymore. They're now having to come out of pocket $350,000 to $400,000 to get something of the same likeness. But yeah, there is definitely a demand for rental properties. a huge high demand for it in our area. So, all right, let me just jump back over here a minute. Some more people I think are coming in. John says it's going to be 29 below tomorrow in Minnesota.
Woo! Wow.
John, what the heck are you doing there, man? Come on. Get over here to Myrtle Beach. It's going to be, I think, 50 to 55 tomorrow. So about a 75-degree difference. I can't even think of 29 below. My brain doesn't even register such a thing.
Once you get to 10 degrees, I don't think there's much difference. You know what I mean? 10 degrees is cold. Once you get to negative 20, I don't know if there's that much. I mean, it's just cold. You don't want to be outside.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Taz says a lot of people he's been meeting here is from PA, New Jersey, New York, and North Carolina. That's where a lot of people are coming from. New York, New Jersey, PA, Ohio.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Through the Northeast, a ton of people are coming here. You know, I share with people all the time. It's very rare to find a local native. You can find locals who've lived here for a while, but finding that native who was born, stayed here, and still lives in the area, it might be 1 out of every 50 to 75 people that you run into. So
yeah, Jeremy. It's cool the neighborhood that I'm in, and I'm in kind of a community of a few hundred homes or whatever. But it's cool to see when I meet my neighbors, they're from all over, right? But all the states that you just mentioned, and my immediate neighbors from Virginia. So yeah, Virginia, New York, Ohio. It's a cool melting pot of people, which I like, because I'm kind of a people person. So I like to meet those types of people. And a lot of them have retired down here. Some of them are like Renee and I, they pop in, pop out, they kind of have second homes here. And then there's a portion of them that are full-time here that live here. They've got families they're raising here. And so, yeah.
Yep, for sure. Bob asked, when you're local, do you get discounts at restaurants, golf courses, etc.? Scott, let me ask you, do you have your license and stuff transferred to South Carolina, or are you still keeping those in Washington to save on the vehicle taxes?
Right. So I know the answer to this question, which I'm sure you're going to address here in a second, but no, I do not. We don't have our licenses out here, so we don't get to take advantage of those discounts or the discount on property taxes that I'm sure you'll speak on as well.
Yeah. So Bob, once you get over here, yes, places will offer it. Simple. The other night, my wife and I, we went over to Walk On Sports Pub. We had the family with, and we went over there to eat dinner and watch one of the football games that was on one of the playoffs. Which, by the way, that's one of the things I think is my favorite about being down here, Scott. There are so many people that are not from this area that even though I live here in South Carolina, my neighbor next door, he's a Philadelphia Eagles fan as well. The guy down the street, he's an Eagles fan as well. So we all can get together and talk about the Eagles. And, I have friends that they're Browns fans, and I have other ones that are Bengals fans. And it's just, you hit the nail on the head. It's a melting pot of people that are here in the area. And so during football playoffs, it's so funny because everybody who loves their teams, they're raving fans of them. And everybody can get together at a sports bar, and there's people cheering for all the teams at all times in there. And so it's pretty cool to see. But to answer your question, Bob, I started to say it and then I never got on to answer it. We were at Walk-Ons, and the person who was waiting on me, he knows that I live here. He's one of my friends. And so when the bill came out, I had a 10% discount on it because I was a local. But when you go into places, if you simply just say, hey, do you offer locals discounts? Yeah, you're going to get them. We went in the fall over to Family Kingdom, which is the amusement park downtown. Normally, the all access pass that they have, whatever it's called, was like $28 or $30 per person. We got them for half off because we were local. Places like the aquarium and all that, they offer half prices on their season passes and things like that. So once you become that local, you can really save a ton of money. Now, if you're someone who lives like Scott, part of the year in Washington, part of the year here, it probably makes more sense to keep your primary residence in Seattle, because if he moves everything here and becomes primary resident of South Carolina, then he starts paying second home taxes on everything up there. And my guess is it's a whole lot more expensive to have second home taxes in Seattle than down here in Myrtle Beach. Would you agree with that, Scott?
Yeah, I've not looked into it, but yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
Here in Myrtle Beach, owning a home as a second home, if it's $300,000 to $400,000 house, you're probably looking at taxes as a primary residence, $1,200 to $1,800. If you own it as a second home, you're probably at about 3 times that amount. But when you become a resident of South Carolina, you're then paying taxes on your vehicles. So I had a client last week who was moving here, and he's in the process of buying a limited edition last run of this type of vehicle. I don't remember what kind it was, but he said it was going to be about $100,000 vehicle. So he's thinking he's going to keep his residency in Ohio so he doesn't have to pay taxes on that $100,000 vehicle here in South Carolina. It's probably cheaper for him to pay second home taxes on a home than on that, plus the $80,000 car he drives on a regular basis and his other toy car that he already owns. So you have to kind of weigh all of that stuff in. But as we're talking tonight, guys, if you have questions, keep them coming. We love it. But Bob, to answer your question, definitely there are spots for discounts. And look, Taz even answered there for you as well. He said you can definitely do so.
Yeah, I think a lot of these businesses too, I grew up in a resort community. And so I know the importance of, these businesses rely on locals, especially this time of the year, right? It's kind of the off season. So they need locals to come in. And so it behooves them to offer discounts to help kind of entice the locals to come in. So.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I was watching earlier today. There's a gentleman. He's a kind of a travel vlogger who's in Myrtle Beach right now visiting family and staying here. And he was here Friday and Saturday and Sunday through the ice storm. And so he was out traveling around to different places trying to check stuff out. He's like, I don't understand. Why is nothing open? What's going on? And then he thought, well, I guess it is kind of off season. During the off season here, which we're in right now, the locals are what keep businesses afloat. They're what keep things going on a daily basis. I remember back to the days when I waited tables here. The summer months, I could easily make $100 to $200 a night table, on tips through waiting tables. This time of year, I might make $13 to $15 in a night, and I'm there for an hour and a half because there's not enough business for everybody there, and so they ship you all home. So, just keep that in mind during the off season. You definitely got to figure out ways to cater to the locals, and all the good restaurants and the good businesses in the area, they're definitely going to do that. So, all right, let's see. We have some other questions coming in here. Surfside Gunny wants to know, Jeremy, do you see 3D printed houses being built soon in Myrtle Beach? What are the pros and cons if so? Interesting. I've never really thought about this. Scott, let me ask this first. Have you seen this happening in Seattle? Your Seattle market's usually a little bit ahead on the progressive side of things than us over here in South Carolina. Have you seen such a thing out there?
So maybe in the Seattle market proper. So, we deal mostly in the north of Seattle area. And so in Snohomish County, which is where we mostly are, no, we have not seen or heard of 3D printed homes. So I personally have no thoughts on this, nor in the Myrtle Beach area have I personally heard or seen any of it. And I subscribe to lots of Facebook closed groups and stuff like that in the Myrtle Beach area, and I've not heard of it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Maybe you would know.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you on that one. To answer, Gunny, here's what I would think. We're in an area here where we can have some severe weather at times in the summer with hurricanes coming through. I don't know that the technology with 3D printing yet is going to be to the ability to withstand that type of extreme high winds we have. When we build it, when D.R. Horton, for example, builds a home here, they've tied that home down to withstand up to 150-mile winds. Our county has very specific, stipulations when building that the home has to withstand certain amount. And so there's all kinds of extra straps and stuff that are put into the home. I don't know that a 3D printed house is going to be able to withstand all of those types of scrutiny and extreme weather that we can have at times. It's possible. Who knows? I don't really know a lot about it, but my guess is probably not right now. Let's see here. UN says, first off, love watching your videos. Very informative. Thank you very much. But then came with a question afterwards. Thinking of you moving to Carolina Forest area, can you talk about the schools? Hearing they are overcrowded, teachers are quitting. Well, Scott, you live in Carolina Forest. Let's
Mhm.
talk about this. And you know fair housing as well as I do. So I'll let you give your answers to kind of the Carolina Forest area, and then I'll throw in a little bit afterwards.
Well, first of all, love the Carolina Forest area because obviously, as you mentioned, Jeremy, that's where I live. Although I've watched this area grow to much bigger than it was when I very first moved here. So I don't even know how far, I guess, west even they're considering Carolina Forest these days. But it's a pretty big area. I love it. There's a lot of new construction happening. And that might be to your point with whoever UN is. We don't have kids that are in school here, but we have friends that have kids. And they have moved them to private school. I don't know if that is any indication to the overcrowding. I really can't speak to the overcrowding, but I can see based on all the new construction how that could be a factor. That's all. That's my
Yeah.
thought.
Well, and here's what I'll say. I have to be careful what I say for fair housing. We're really not allowed to discuss schools and good, bad, and all that kind of stuff. But here's what I can tell you. I also live in Carolina Forest. I live 5 minutes away from Scott. And the reason we chose to live in Carolina Forest is not so much necessarily the schools, it's the ones wherein our kids love, and I'll talk more on that in a second. But for us, it was all about the location. It was about being close to the beach. You know, from my house to 48th Avenue, the Golden Mile, I'm 12 minutes from my door to the beach. I can be there out on the beach where there's not a bunch of tourists and relaxing, enjoying some of the, I think, is probably the absolute best stretch of beach in all of Horry County along there. And so for us, we love that. We love the fact that when we have friends that come in town and they say, hey, Jeremy, let's go to eat tonight up in Little River, we jump on Highway 31. We're up to Little River in 25 minutes, eating the Clark's seafood, having an amazing steak with a crab cake on top of risotto with asparagus and a cream sauce and balsamic vinaigrette over the top of it. And Scott, if you've never gone there, you need to go to that place.
I'm like, I haven't eaten dinner yet. You're making my mouth water here.
Yeah, Clark's Seafood and Steakhouse in Little River.
Okay.
Go try it out.
Nice.
It's about a 25-minute ride, and we can be there. If tomorrow I have someone who shows up and says, hey, Jeremy, come meet us down in Myrtle's Inlet for the day, we can drive on 31 South and be there in 35 minutes.
Mhm.
We're kind of centrally located to everything Myrtle Beach has. If I want to go out to Conway, we're 15 minutes. But what's even more important for us, we're close to the airport. For Scott, I'm betting for you that was one of the big factors in picking where you lived, because you're traveling back to Seattle. And how often do you do that type of trip? Are you doing it every month, every 2-3 months?
Yeah, we go every month. Yep, every month.
Yeah. So, you know, for you, that convenience to the airport, it's 10 minutes from your house, 15 from mine to be there. That's the stuff that helped me decide on Carolina Forest. Now, for the schools, my kids are in Ocean Bays Elementary right now. And, you know, in the last year or two, a lot of people did put their kids into private schools here in our area. The reason that they did that, from what the people that I've spoken to, wasn't because of overcrowding in the schools, wasn't because of a lackluster education that their children were getting, but from what they told me was when COVID came in and we didn't know the kids were going to be sometimes virtual, sometimes not. They were going to be limited with plexiglass plastic between them and social distance and all of these extra things. They said, we don't want our kids subjected to that. We're going to put them in a private school where they don't have to worry about those things, and they'll be able to go to school 5 days a week. And so that's why a lot of people did. Like I said, my children, they're in the Ocean Bays Elementary and middle school. They absolutely love it. My daughter's getting ready for high school next year. And, you know, we have no problem sending her off to one of the public high schools here as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of information. We have to be kind of careful way we talk about it for sure. But hopefully that answers it some. Let's see here. Arnold says, question, how much lag are new home constructions from beginning to completed? Good question, Arnold. So it depends on the builder is kind of the best answer I can give you. If you're one of the larger builders like D.R. Horton or Pulte or Beazer or Lennar, you're probably about 6 to 7 months from beginning to end. However, and I've talked about this at length before, some of the on-site builders are not allowing you to make selections in your house. You take what they're going to build on that lot and do it. Now, Pulte's allowing you to do this. And Scott, I don't know if you've recently looked at getting a Pulte home or anything here. I know you bought one, but right now the lot premiums on the newest section in the development you're in is $50,000 to $100,000 for lake lots.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's insane how much they're putting on them. So people are seeing this home, and you go on the website and it says, hey, here's a new construction home from the 300s. Well, till you put your lot premium on, till you add on the screened reports on the back, or even just a covered lanai, till you add in solid surface floors, and you put granite counters in it, and all just the basic things you'd want in a house these days, other than the cheapest stuff, you're adding $60,000 to $110,000, $120,000 to the purchase price. So that $300,000 house is really about a $420,000 to $440,000 home. And so Pulte right now, and I just spoke to someone last week over there. I have somebody who's looking to buy over in Berkshire Forest, and they their time right now, homes, if they sign the contract today, they're getting in August. Now, if you're with one of the smaller local builders like Creekside Builders or Beverly Homes, they're about 9 to 12 months out on building. The smaller builders especially are having trouble getting product. Give you an example. I have a gentleman, he bought a home from REALTOR, which was just recently acquired, but they were a small local builder. We went and signed his contract. The only reason I remember is because I had to drive down there 4th of July weekend to Pawleys Island. We signed his contract that day. His home was supposed to be done by the end of the year, first month of this year. I talked to him last week. He's in framing right now. They just started framing his house. So his home's still got another 2-3 months till it'll be ready to go. So, if you're moving to the area, new construction's awesome and great, but you better make sure you have some sort of backup plan in place, because your home's going to sell quick up there in the Northeast. In 30 days, you're done. Woohoo! You might be smart enough to get a lease back for 60 to 90 days, but you're still going to have to find someplace to stay for a few months. So, all right, let's see. Arnold also asks, are e-buyers overwhelming the market, driving up prices? E-buyers. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by e-buyers. Are you talking about companies that are coming in, or people just buying online houses? Yes, there is a good amount of people coming here buying virtually. They can't get down here and they want to move. They're familiar with the area. And so in the last 6 months, I've done a ton of virtual showings and purchases for people, for sure. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, tell me a little bit differently, Arnold. Maybe we'll try to answer it. Let's see here. Oh, Jason, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Myrtle Beach is fire in July. It is hot. Yes, Myrtle Beach can be extremely hot. And Scott, let's talk about that a minute. Since you moved here from the Pacific Northwest, the weather here is a little bit different during the summer. How do you and Renee deal with the extreme hot and high humidity that we have here? Because I doubt you deal with a lot of that when you lived in Seattle.
Well, we hadn't had to deal with it for the first couple of years that we had our house, because we weren't out here in July. We would go back to Seattle where it's mid 80s, and it's beautiful and blue skies and mid 80s in Seattle in July is a perfect time, right? But as I mentioned, with COVID, and likely this July as well, we're probably going to be out here. And so this last July, it did get very, very hot. Now, luckily, unlike in the Seattle market where none of the homes, well, I shouldn't say none of them, most of the homes don't have AC. Obviously, luckily, all the houses here do. So we were able to stay cool indoors. We also have a nice, as a lot of homes here do, covered patio area here. that we can go outside and not get in the blistering heat. But then we also, as Jeremy knows, added a pool. And so if we get too hot, we can always jump in the pool as well. So that's how we stay cool in the summertime. That and all the ice cream shops that are along the Grand Strand, we pop in there occasionally in the summertime. That's always a nice little treat,
I seem to see an awful lot of photos of you eating ice cream. I don't know about this. You seem to like a little bit. Yeah, it's interesting. We definitely have heat here. There's no doubt about it. And you brought up something that reminded me. I have a brother-in-law. He lives in Portland, Oregon. And if you guys remember last year, there was an unseasonable heat wave that went through that area where they had temperatures up in like the 90s and I think even into the hundreds at times.
Mm-hmm.
And those houses up there are not designed for heat.
Yeah.
They're just not. And so he was sweltering all the time. The same thing is kind of true for down here in South Carolina, the opposite way. Our homes, they're designed to handle heat. A lot of the homes here have high ceilings, vaulted ceilings in them. Why? Because heat rises. So that hot air is going to go up. They have central air built. I don't know that I've seen a house here in the last 10 years that did not have central air conditioning through it. I run my air conditioner probably 8.5 months of the year. We then have about a month and a half where you really don't need to run much of anything. And then a couple weeks, we might run the heat. Our homes here, they're not designed to deal with heat running. And so it gets extremely expensive. But during the year, when we're in the hot seasons, it's not that expensive to run air conditioning. I don't know about you, Scott, but my average utility bill in the middle of summer might be $200 to $250. And my house, all electric. I don't have anything, that isn't electric. My range, my dryer, everything is on electric. And my bill is only about $200 to $250 in the peak of the season. What about you?
That sounds actually pretty similar to ours too. Yeah. In the middle of the summer. Yeah.
I mean, it's the houses here are designed great for them. And so it works well here for sure.
Hey, Jeremy, I got a question for you. And I don't know if you even know the answer to this or not, but when we bought our so our house is a Pulte home, right? Mm-hmm. When we bought this house, it's one of the upgrades that we could pay for, which we did, was for kind of like an aluminum, almost like a foil looking thing that goes up in the attic space to kind of, in their terms, deflect some of the heat, even though the sun's not directly hitting that aluminum, but it's up in the attic and it's supposed to kind of deflect it a little bit somehow to keep the energy cost down. I mean, our bill seems reasonable based on everything that we can figure out, but what are your thoughts? Have you heard anything about these?
I've heard, some of the builders putting those types of things in, and I know what you're talking about. It's the reflective shield or something like that.
Yeah.
And it is supposed to work. I mean, your home is definitely how many heated square feet do you have in your home, basically, you think?
We have 2,400.
Yeah. So your home's a little bit larger than mine, and it's just two of you living there. So, I would say you're pretty, it's helping some. My home's a little bit older. Mine was built in 2006, and I have five people in the house all the time. And so we're about 250, especially once I replaced the HVAC. Before, when I had my older air conditioner, it used to be the original when we bought our home, my bill could go easily $325, $340 in the peak of summer, for sure, because it just couldn't keep up. But now that we have a new system, it definitely helped to bring down the bills. That with putting a smart thermostat in that we can kind of control. So, all right, let's see. We got some more questions. Guys, I appreciate you giving us the questions tonight. Keep them coming in. Scott, are you having fun? I'm hoping you are.
I'm liking some of these questions that are coming up. So, yeah, I can't wait till we get to them.
So, UN said, question, we are thinking of building in the Clear Pond community with Toll Brothers. What is a realistic time frame on new build during these times? I don't know Toll Brothers time frame right now, but I'm going to assume it's probably in line with some of the other builders. So I'm going to say 6 to 12 months is probably realistic. With the new construction, guys, there's the supply chain issues that are really causing some problems. I shared this story before a couple times, but I had someone that bought a home recently that had a three car garage, and the builder, in this, I'm just sharing this with y'all to kind of give you a little fair warning of what to expect. This builder told them that they must close on the day of the contract. And if they do not close on the day of the contract, the builder could care less if they do or not. They'll sell the house the next day to someone else and raise the price. And that builder would have done it and probably rose the price $20,000, $40,000, $50,000 on the home. But they tell my people they need to close. So we go to do the final walkthrough, and they don't have a garage door on the single door. The supplier could not get single doors in. So they took a double door, cut it in half, and put it half on their house, half on the one next door, and said, it's just temporary for now. Don't worry. We'll fix it in the future for you. Go ahead and close. And my people are like, well, there's no opener on it, and there's no way to really lock it or anything because it's temporary. You didn't put any stuff in. So how do we put anything in our garage to store after moving? We have to be here, and we have to move in to this house and take possession and close on time. So they ended up taking the house with a temporary garage door and also no shelving anywhere in the house, and made them close on the house. So just be careful. Some of the builders may do that to you. Or like one of my clients right now, they were supposed to close in January. We're now at about March 15th, I think, for an actual closing date because of delays. Couldn't get drywall, couldn't get cabinets, couldn't get whatever. These builders right now, what they're doing is when they go to contract, and as soon as everything's signed by you and the builder, they're ordering everything for the house to try to get it in on time so that things can be closed somewhat close to on time. But they're still running into supply issues where they can't get cabinets, they can't get the granite, they can't get garage doors or shelving for the closets or anything like that. So just keep that in mind with anything you're doing new construction right now, that you could run into that. If you're someone that's on a real tight, strict timeline, unless we can find an inventory home that's basically ready to go, I would highly suggest looking in the resale market. There are some homes that come on the market that are built 2017, 18, 19 that are just about as good as the new home, but we can close those on time. Mm-hmm. You answered thanks. That does give them some clarity. Should have said iBuyer, like Zillow, Open Door, etc. Oh, the Zillow. Hey, you know about that Zillow group. They're from up your way, Scott. Down here in our area, no, the iBuyers really had never came into Myrtle Beach, so we're not going to see the foreclosures come from it. But Scott, I'm sure you've seen and heard on this in your market. Why don't you explain a little bit about it to everybody and tell us how it's working up in Seattle right now for them?
Yeah, and we actually at my company up in Seattle, we actually offer this as an option to sellers, right? We can get them an instant offer. So that's what the iBuyer is. It's an instant offer on their home, and so this is something that we can offer to a seller in that Seattle market. And the price that a iBuyer is willing to pay for a home is not typically market value, right? It's normally somewhere between 5 and 10%, sometimes more than 10% below the market value. And so there's not a ton of market share that these iBuyers are getting in any market, really. You recently probably saw Zillow in the news that they are shutting down their iBuyer department because they ended up with too much inventory. They were counting, I think, on too much of this upswing in the market, and they were buying homes that needed to work, and they couldn't get the vendors lined up quick enough. And so now they're sitting on a bunch of inventory that they need to get rid of, which is doing the opposite, I think, of your question. It's not increasing the values. It's actually, maybe if anything, bringing them down a little bit, because they're selling those homes in some cases in bulk, 10 to 50 homes at a time to investors who are willing to just take them off their plate, and in some cases for a lot less than they even paid for them. So like Jeremy said, in Myrtle Beach, I also have not seen or heard of a lot of iBuyers happening here, but in a lot of markets, I don't feel like it's driving up. They're not actually a huge part of the market still. There's a decent chunk. I think last year nationally it was like 2% of the entire market was iBuyers, so it's a very small part of the market.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a fun question for you, Scott. Best pizza in Carolina Forest. It's a criteria for my 10 and 11-year-old New Yorker boys. Where's your favorite spot for pizza?
Well, so here's the funny thing. Like pizza places in the Grand Strand are as common as a mini golf. They're everywhere. You can get pizza places everywhere, and it took me a while to realize that. But because so many people relocate here from up there, right, New York and that area where pizza is good, they're used to good pizza. So there's lots of good places to get pizza here. In the Carolina Forest area, though, I will tell you, I've been vastly disappointed in most of the pizza places locally here. The one, though, that I like the most is called Scotto's Pizza. That is my favorite in this area. So,
yeah, I agree. The two places in Carolina Forest to get good quality pizza: Scotto's Pizzeria. It's a nice little local shop, and also Gino's Pizza is pretty good. And Gino's has two locations in Carolina Forest. There's one that's real close to Scott's house there over by Forest Brook, and then there's one at the other end of Carolina Forest down in the Kroger Shopping Center. Both of them have pretty good pizza. For our area, my favorite outside Carolina Forest area is probably King's Pizza up in North Myrtle Beach. It's been there forever and a day, and it looks like a dive, but it's got some pretty good pizza. Other than that, in our area in Carolina Forest, there's Marco's, there's Hungry Howie's, there's Pizza Hut, there's Domino's, I think there's a Papa John's, there's a Little Caesars. All of these different
franchises,
little franchise pizza joints are all over the place, like Scott was saying. So finding pizza is not hard, but if you want the better quality stuff, Scotto's and Gino's is probably the best of the best in that. James, this is a great question. So James is asking, I'm hearing that you have to pay a one-time fee of $1,200 for new construction in Horry County. What does that money go to? Excellent question. Scott, I don't know if you've heard about this, but recently it started, I believe it was October, I actually did a whole video on this, James. It's on my channel that talks about it. But Horry County put in place impact fees on new construction. And so, yes, I believe if I remember correctly, it was like $1,357 it would be on a new construction home. That's a one-time fee when the permits and everything are basically pulled for the house. What that money is going towards is to help build up the infrastructure here in the county, to put in, new firehouses, new police stations, the patrols, all that stuff that is needed for the area. That's what that money is supposed to go towards. But yes, there is in Horry County now an impact fee that started in October, I believe it was, of last year, and it can be up to $1,357 is the number that sticks in my head. But if you go over on my channel, there's a whole video that talks about that. And if I can later find the link, I'll drop it in the comments to it. But yes, we definitely have that now. And it is much less than what originally was supposed to be put in place. They wanted a number much, much higher, the county. And luckily, our local real estate association and others spoke up on behalf of the homeowners to say, listen, pump the brakes on us a little bit. Let's not make home buying that much more expensive right now, which was good. Did you know about that, Scott?
I didn't, but it makes total sense, because I don't know if it's similar here as it is in the Seattle market, but in the Seattle, in Washington State, when you buy a new construction home, that first year of property taxes is an unknown to the county, right? They don't know how to tax it because it hasn't existed ever. That house hasn't really existed. So the first year, typically in Washington State, tends to be way less. They vastly undertax you that first year until a lot more homes start to pop up. And then like, well, we've been undercharging them, so we need to now bring it up. So the impact fee totally makes sense, because it's almost like we don't know what the value of your home is going to be yet to tax it accordingly. So we're just going to give you a little fee on the front end so that we can still, accomplish these things in infrastructure. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and here in Horry County, what they do is your first year, you're taxed on just the dirt. So it might be $35,000, $40,000 for your first year, with it. So you get a tax bill for $150. So this is one of the ways that they can help to recoup that for sure as well. Yeah. All right. Some other questions coming in here. Guys, thank you for the questions. I love them. Keep them coming. Bob wants to know, Jeremy, do new home communities raise the HOAs up every year, or are they set for so many years? They are not set for multiple years. And yes, they sometimes go up. Now, Scott, you're over there in a Pulte community. I know yours went up a little bit this year, if I remember correctly. How much have you seen them going up over the few years that you've owned here?
This is a non-condo community. I should say that first, because obviously there's a much higher rate if you're in a condo. But for a housing community, ours has gone up in 4.5 years. It's gone up about $60 a month.
Yeah.
So, but the HOA boards. I have a lot of experience with the HOA boards. They're supposed to vote on these things and run essentially budgets for the next year. And unfortunately, with the cost of goods and inflation and wages and stuff like that, everything goes up every year a little bit, right? And so I think it's inevitable that HOA fees will likely go up, but a good managed HOA with a good board that can really dig into budgeting and getting multiple bids from vendors like landscapers, et cetera, should be able to control the cost overall for a set period of years. So,
yeah. Well, and here's one thing too that I'll share. So most communities now throughout Horry County have what's called a capital contribution fee that is put into every sale that happens in that community. And so what happens is when you buy in that community, you pay it or somebody else is paying it. So when you're writing a contract with someone, this is something that I always work on with my buyers. I always try to set it that the seller is going to pay any transfer fees, because some of the neighborhoods, it's very minimal. It might be $200, $300, $400. But some of them, like Tuscany, which is the development right near here in Carolina Forest, it's like $1,500 to $2,000. So what happens is every time a home sells in that neighborhood, $2,000 is collected. That money goes into a reserve so that if during the year the landscape price goes from $100,000 to $120,000, they have money there to take care of it, so that you're not seeing special assessments come along to do that. In your development, Scott, I know, I have a little bit of experience there. Your development also, though, added a lot of new amenities and things in there. And when those things come about, the operating cost of that stuff is going to go up too. My development that I'm in, I live in the farm. My HOA was $84 from basically the beginning of the development up until last year. And it went from $84 to $90 last year. And the reason that it went up wasn't because they mismanaged funds, wasn't because of anything with it. They decided that in my HOA, that instead of just offering my HOA for $84, I got use of 2 community pools, a clubhouse, a fitness center, basketball courts, and weekly trash pickup, and basic cable. Well, because of the basic cable being with Spectrum, Spectrum came to them and said, hey, would you like to offer your HOA community internet as well? We can give you high-speed internet for a very small additional fee. So mine went from $84 to $90 a month. I now have basic cable and high-speed internet, which is Spectrum Ultra, which is 400 download speed for $6 more a month. I don't know anybody who can get cable and internet at what I've got for even just that for $90 a month.
Right.
So I was glad and happy to pay an extra $6 and get that in. But my neighborhood, we've hardly seen any of it. And a lot of that is because of the capital contribution. Now, in a condo complex, like Scott said in the beginning, yeah, those fees can definitely change, and sometimes pretty dramatically at times. I think back to when Hurricane Katrina came through our area. I was selling back then, 2005, 2006, and it didn't affect us here in Myrtle Beach, Katrina, but it did affect us in that the insurance companies that all pull from the national pool of money to restore and fix in crisis emptied basically the whole account. And so all of these companies needed to refill the reserves. And the way they could do that was by raising everybody's insurance. So these oceanfront buildings, which are at the highest risk because they're right along the coast, the insurance on those buildings was tripling overnight. So people's HOA fees went from $300 to $400 to $500 to $600 almost overnight. Also, when you're in those condo complexes, if they need to have a special assessment because, hey, the building needs to be resurfaced, or we need to repaint the outsides, or we need to re-roof the building, those things cost thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the only way they can have some money in reserve, but they're never going to have enough. So they're going to have to claim that back somehow. And the way they're doing that is by special assessing those who own in the building. And so you may see an extra assessment for $150 for a year each month. I've seen some that either did it where you paid a one-time fee or in quarterly portions, or like one of the neighborhoods, their HOA fee was $300. They had major structural issues they had to refix. Their HOA fee went to $700 a month almost overnight. But in residential, very, very minimal. So hopefully that answers. I know we kind of went down a long rabbit hole there, Bob, but hopefully that answers all your questions. UN wants to know, any plans for rerouting traffic on 501 and Carolina Forest Boulevard to alleviate congestion? I don't know. I don't think there is any right now. I know one of the things that they did recently is they widened 501 through that area to make it 6 lanes through there, and it has helped to dramatically with it. But that light there at the other end of Carolina Forest Boulevard, I had a client once. He was a professor at Clemson University, or maybe it was Coast, I don't remember which. And he did a study with his class, and that people who live by that intersection have to go through it every day. They spend 3.5 days of their year sitting at that light.
That's a great question, though, because there, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of new construction happening out in this area in Carolina Forest. So it has brought a lot more cars. And I was just on 501 earlier running some errands, and it looks like they're actually widening it further, at least in certain sections. And then Carolina Forest Boulevard did get widened recently. And then River Oaks, the plans are to widen that as well. So kind of on the, I guess you'd call it the east side of Carolina Forest, where River Oaks kind of runs, that is going to eventually get widened as well. So, but you know what, it just seems like these roads always get widened too late. You know, they really should invest the money to widen these before they bring in 500 new homes or whatever. But
yeah,
it's a government. What are you going to do?
Luckily, the Carolina Forest widening project went much faster than 707 down on the southern end. I used to live down there, had a house in a development. And when we moved in, they told us, oh, yeah, the widening project will be done in the next 6 months. We lived there for 5 years. And when we left, the widening project still was not done.
Oh, geez.
Luckily, Carolina Forest project, they did it all in basically about a year. They're finishing up the walking trails and biking trails, which somebody asked me that the other day. Hey, are there places with good neighborhoods nearby where we can go run or ride our bike? And so all of those that are along Carolina Forest, they have those walking, biking trails that are going to be along the road. It's now a 5-lane road at 45 miles an hour. So it's much easier to get up and down Carolina Forest Boulevard. But yeah, River Oaks needs to be done. And the other one that needs to be done desperately in our area is Forest Brook Road. Once those two get done, we'll see a lot better.
By the way, that walking trail is a little over 4 miles long. It's really cool. Really cool. Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. And thank you guys for the questions. Keep them coming in. I'm having fun. Hopefully, Scott, you're having fun as well. But let's see here. Kenneth asks, in the process of buying a condotel in Myrtle Beach, the investor delayed closing for 3 times past 2 weeks. Does a buyer have the option to walk if the closings are continually delayed? Thanks. Do I really want to get into this question or not? I have to be careful what I say and what we do because you're not my client, so I cannot really say much about it. My answer, I think, is going to be in this situation, talk to your attorney and take their advice. I think that's probably the safest. Broker Scott, what would you say? Not South Carolina Scott, but Broker Scott, would you agree with my answer?
Yeah, I would always veer on whoever represents you. If you have an agent, I would ask their thoughts, or an attorney for sure. That's part of this deal. But, in general, I would have to look at the contract, right, to actually analyze and answer that correctly. But in most cases, there is a closing date for a reason, right? And in a lot of cases, if somebody cannot close by that date without good cause, then technically, at least in Washington State, you'd be able to get out of that contract and get your earnest money back. But I don't know here. I don't know the contract. So I agree with Jeremy. Talk to your attorney, or talk to the attorney.
Yeah, there's so many variables that go into that, Kenneth, that could change my answer so much on it. Really and truly talk to your attorney who's representing you. You as the buyer have rights just as much as the seller does through the transaction. And a contract is something that is in written form that has been agreed upon by a buyer and a seller. We have agreed. This is the purchase price. This is what's going to be repaired. This is the date we're supposed to close. And both parties agree to meet those terms on those times. And if for some reason they can't, I don't know the circumstances as to why. There's a lot. It could be, I don't even want to go there, but it could be the seller may not want to sell anymore.
I was thinking that, yeah.
A lot of sellers are having seller's remorse. It used to be buyer's remorse, where, why am I buying this house? This was a big mistake. I don't want to do it. And they went out. Sellers are having that more now than anything because, why? I think I sold it too little, because they're putting their home on the market and selling it in 3 hours. And then they're thinking, well, I could have got more. The thing I always share this with people, we as real estate agents have learned over the years that we're just going to be wrong no matter what. If I list your home for sale, Scott, for $350 and have an offer in 20 minutes for you for $350 cash, close on the day you want to close, you're going to be happy, but you're still going to be thinking, well, I could have got more. Or if I list it too high and it takes 2 days to sell right now in this market instead of 2 hours, you're going to say, Jeremy's not doing his job right. We learn. We're always the ones at fault in this thing, and just we move forward with it. So hopefully, though, that answers your question some, Kenneth. But guys, I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming in. And Scott, we're going to get back to this move now. So you moved here from the Pacific Northwest. Let's first talk about the buying process here and the transaction and how it went. Can you kind of tell us how you've sold and helped people buy hundreds of properties in the Pacific Northwest, so you know that market like the back of your hand. You can do it in your sleep. How is it different, though, here in Horry County, where we live right now? Because I know things are a little different than some other parts of the country. What were some of the biggest frustrations you ran into throughout the process?
Well, I think there's definitely, it's a slower moving process, I guess, is one way that I can say this. I've found this to be true also with vendors that I try to call to help make fixes and repairs on my house and stuff like that. People don't move as quick, I guess, here, which I don't blame them, as they might in like the Seattle market where I'm used to. So that was one thing that was a little bit different, right? A little bit slower moving. But also in Washington State, we deal with escrow companies. And I think that's the same in some of the several other states that relocate out here too. But in Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, it's an attorney state. And so that was new to me, that everything had to be closed through an attorney and not through an escrow company. But other than that, I mean, I feel like a lot of the things they felt pretty similar. Yeah, I don't know that there was too much of a huge difference. Yeah.
It's funny you talk about the slower. The way I explain to people is this: you're in the South. The reason people are moving here is because it's a laid back lifestyle. The problem is not us. It's you adjusting to the speed at which things go here. Once you realize when you live here, you cannot adjust, you cannot change it, you cannot speed them up, and you learn why fight it, might as well join them, and you come over to our side, you just have this nice, relaxed life, easy going. It's interesting, you mentioned closing. One of the things that I deal with a lot I've talked to people about this in the last probably 3-4 months more than any other topic is this. You buying a house here in South Carolina need to have at least 40 to 45 days for closing right now. Even if you're a cash buyer, it's still going to take that time. Why? The attorneys, if you're using a good attorney at least, they're going to need it to get the title work done. If there's an appraisal being done, that's going to take some time. Home inspectors are backed up. Everybody is backed up right now. And so you need that 45 days. So what I'm telling people all the time is this, because this is what happens. Right now, sellers are in the driver's seat. So when you're selling your home, wherever it may be, don't get excited with just the first offer and say, okay, and take it. You can negotiate any and all parts of a contract. And one of the big parts that you want to look at is that closing date. Because in New York, in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, 30-day closings, that's fairly typical right now. The problem is you need 45 here. So you're spending 2 to 2.5 weeks trying to figure what to do with your stuff, where to live, and what to do with everything you have, including pets and everything else. I recently had a lady who was down here, single mom. She was here with her daughter and 2 cats, and she had to live for 10 days in a La Quinta Inn hotel room with 2 cats and her daughter in a small room with a queen-size bed. I'm sure that was so much fun to try to do. But her home closed up there. She came down because everything she signed and off she goes. And then there was a delay on her closing because she didn't use a local lender. And we waited for, I think it was like 10 or 12 days that she was basically homeless. So when you're buying a home, and Scott, I don't know if you deal with this up in your agents or dealing with it in Seattle, but one of the things that I'm sharing with people always is this. Either you can ask for a longer closing date, or you can ask in the multiple offer situation, okay, we're taking highest and best, and one of the things that we need is a lease back. So give us your best on that as well, and ask for that lease back for 30, 60 days after your closing. If you can do that and get somebody to offer you that way, you've got your cash in hand. You're ready to buy here, and you can make the process smooth and easy with making the move. Are you dealing with that a lot up there? Are people asking for lease backs and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's actually very common to see that, where the seller's staying in the home for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, at a time. So it's kind of created a new challenge for us agents and our buyer clients, right? Because they become temporary landlords during that time. So that's opens up a whole other can of worms where it changes the type of homeowners insurance and all of that as well. But it is an option. It's a solution to that potential challenge that you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly where I was going to go. So if you're buying a home, you may not want to be so quick to take on that lease back option, because your insurance, you're not getting primary homeowners insurance. You have to get landlord insurance because you now have tenants. You are responsible for making sure that utilities and everything are on and everything is good and everything's happy and hunky-dory for them. And heaven forbid, during that time, somebody sets the house on fire, you're the owner that now has a piece of dirt with an ashy house sitting on it and are responsible for getting everything taken care of to fix it back. So there is some risk to take that on. What I suggest to my buyers and what I've been trying to do lately is have that communication. And it's all about communication when buying a house. Having that communication with the listing agent and say, hey, my buyer's fairly flexible on the day we close. What date works best? Are the sellers looking for a quick one, or do they need something a little bit longer to get to their next home? And we can be flexible. When we can be flexible there, we're finding our offers getting accepted over others. So, all right, let's see here. Oh, we skipped one here. All right, so UN wants to know what fun indoor activities locals do in the colder months. Scott, what are things you and Renee like to do here what's the fun things you like to do during the winter?
Well, we sometimes go wine tasting up at Duplin Winery. That's indoor or outdoor, right? There's options there, but that's something there. We also still go to the malls that are here. I mean, that's, in the movie theaters and all of that. So, because it's still warm enough to walk around, and it's not typically raining. So you can still be outside and still enjoy that for the most part. We're just we do a lot of the same things. We're just not really on the beach because the water temperature isn't really there for us. So we pretty much avoid the beach for a few months of the year. But other than that, everything else we mostly still do. To be honest.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff here is still open. Has become now year-round open, and so there's a lot of things to do. Like Scott said, I'm not a big fan of going down to the beach this time of year, just because the wind is whipping and it is very cold. Yes, the temperature may say it's 50 out, but with that wind, it feels more like about 35. But some of the things we like to do. And you, and I think if I remember correctly, you had two boys, I think, that were like teenagers or almost teenagers. My kids love going to the aquarium. We get season passes. We can go over to the aquarium any day we want to and walk around and check that out. That's something to do. Another thing that's really fun to do that recently opened here, Top Golf. Top Golf is heated. Yeah. It is awesome to go and do, even this time of year. Go out there and hit balls. The golf courses, they don't shut down. They were shut down on Saturday this week because there was a 1/4 inch of ice on the greens. But Sunday, as I drove to church, it was 10 degrees out and they were out there getting stuff ready. Why? People are coming. I saw this weekend, Scott, on Saturday and Sunday, there was a softball tournament right down the street from me, across the street over at Ocean Bays Elementary. There's a softball field there. There was a tournament there all day long, people out there playing. My wife said, why in the world would people be doing that? I'm like, honey, you got to think. People pay big money, come down here for a weekend and play in these tournaments. They're coming from New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. They've got 8 to 10 inches of snow on the ground. It's below freezing. This is a heat wave to them. They love it. So, there's those types of things to do. There are a lot of trails in the area. The Hulk Trail is awesome to go walk on. And it might be cooler, but our cooler to me and Scott as a quote local now is temperatures in the 40s to 50s versus the 70s and 80s of the springtime. To most people coming from the Northeast, that's a heat wave. They're in shorts and t-shirts running around down here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Scott, having moved from the Northwest, what are the pros and cons moving to Myrtle Beach as we contemplate moving our family? Ooh, that's a good question. UN's got some good questions for you here tonight.
And where is UN from? Do we know?
You haven't told us that. Tell us where you're from and what's your actual name instead of UN or UN. Yep.
Well, I'll start. While we're waiting for that, I'll start by talking about some of the pros. For me, one thing that I was not counting on is just the hospitality in general. In the South is something that you hear about, but until you experience it firsthand, it's hard to really describe. But I can tell you that I don't know any of my neighbors, none of them in the Seattle area. I know none of them. I don't know their names. I don't know their kids' names. I just see them, and this is going to sound so weird, but we try not to make eye contact, and maybe we do a little wave, and that's it, and that's the end of it. And in Myrtle Beach, it is so the opposite. It is so the opposite. I can't go for a walk in my neighborhood without stopping and seeing 3 or 4 or 5 different neighbors and having a nice long chat with them. I mean, everybody's so friendly and wants to get to know each other, and everybody knows each other's names here, and everybody's got each other's backs here. And people watch each other's houses and pets. And I mean, it's just such an awesome, that part has been amazing. I mean, it's blown me away. And also, barbecues or cookouts, everybody's invited. The whole neighborhood is invited. In Seattle, it's very specific, right? We're careful who we invite, but here, oh no, come one, come all, bring your kids, everybody's here, so that's been a huge pro. For cons to moving to the Myrtle Beach area, for me, I think the biggest con was moving cross country. It's very expensive. We're actually getting ready to move some more items out this way from Seattle, and looking at the cost of, I know everything's gone up, but moving trucks and moving companies, I don't know if anybody that's on here has looked into this recently, but that has gone up significantly since last time we did it. So that would be a con, I would say, especially moving as far away as we did. That was a con. The traffic during the, I guess, tourist season of Myrtle Beach can get pretty crazy in certain areas. But what I love as a pro, though, is that it's still nowhere near as bad as it is in Seattle. I mean, it's just not. And I guess the other thing is, too, is when I travel back to Seattle and I jump on a freeway, sometimes it is like miles and miles of taillights, in traffic, and it could take me an hour to go 15 minutes or 15 miles, excuse me. Where here, you may get stuck in traffic, like you mentioned the traffic light earlier, Jeremy. There's a couple of those in the area, right? You can get stuck there. You could be stuck there for a while. But besides that, you're moving. You're still moving with the flow. And so I never really feel like the traffic here is anywhere near as bad as it is in other places. And there's a lot less people here. I think maybe Jeremy, but I think the in the off season, the population is somewhere in the 40 to 60,000 range in this area. And I love that. It's it was 1 million people in the county that I came from. So it's a huge difference there.
Well, and one of the things I would say is this, and I've talked about this in a lot of my videos, is when you become a local, you learn all the shortcuts and back roads to get around. And really and truly, if you avoid 501 and 544 on the weekend, you can pretty much go anywhere and get around everywhere, which is one of the reasons why I picked to live in Carolina Forest. So here in the Carolina Forest area, if I want to go north, I have options. I can jump on, or if I want to go south, either way, I can jump on Highway 31. It's a 6-lane road, 65 miles an hour, no stoplights, and I can get to the way up to the northern end or way to the southern end. Heaven forbid there's a tractor trailer that jackknifes across the lane and it's shut down. So I can't get on 31 today. So instead, I bounce over to 17 bypass. I can take that and go all the way to the north of the southern end. Heaven forbid that there's a jackknife tractor trailer on that road as well at the same time. So I still have options. I can go over to 17 business. Say there's a third one, the jackknife across that road at the same time. I can jump over to Ocean Boulevard and get around the stuff. So there's options to get north to south to just about any part of the beach. As long as you learn to not go on 501 unless you have to on a Friday afternoon in the season, or Highway 544 on a Saturday. And the difference is this: 544 is where all the RVs and trailers are coming in to go to the campgrounds. So they're going down to the southern end of the beach, and they come in on Saturdays for check-in. People coming on vacation are coming in on Fridays usually, and Saturdays, but a lot more on Fridays, and they're on 501. So if I just avoid those roads unless I have to go through them on those days, it's really not too bad. Have you noticed that, Scott?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And and by the way, in 501, it's not really a huge stretch, I don't think. I mean, it's basically kind of just outside of Conway to that main intersection light that you're talking about, almost to the outlet mall
Yeah.
there, before 31. That little stretch there is the worst.
Yeah.
But even after you get past that, heading towards the beach, it opens up quite a bit. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah, I don't feel like it's that bad. And I agree with you. Carolina Forest, we picked this for that same reason. We're removed from the touristy districts, if you want to call them that. So even if we go to restaurants, here in the Carolina Forest area, it's rare to find tourists in there. It's mostly locals because that's who lives out here, right?
I call the Intracoastal Waterway the invisible barrier for tourism.
Oh, there you go.
Basically, once you come on the west side of the waterway, there's hardly anything tourism going on over here. It's just like living in any town, USA. There's not, you don't see all the stuff. Now, when you go on the east side of the waterway and you're over in city limits of Myrtle Beach and all that, oh yeah, it can definitely be a difference there.
Yeah.
But once you come west, it's like, oh, where are we? We're in this new world that I never experienced before. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
that's an insider tip. Live west of the waterway. You're going to be outside city limits, save on your taxes, be away from a lot of the tourism, and you're still close enough to get to it pretty quick and easy.
And I do see real quick, Jeremy, just to finish answering Julie's question. Julie is UN or UN.
Yes.
She's from Hudson Valley area of New York. So yeah, if you're moving the whole family out here, after I moved out here as a second home, one of my really good friends ended up moving out here full time with her family. They love it. I mean, they absolutely love it. And they actually lived in a rural area on 5 acres out in the north of Seattle area. And they were coming out here to Myrtle Beach, kind of a smaller town, if you want to call it that. That can sometimes feel big town. I don't have a lot of cons. It's mostly pros. And I don't know what your current area is like, Hudson Valley area. I don't know that I've been there, but yeah, come on out.
Yeah, the other thing, Julie, I would say is going back to Scott's point about the hospitality here. And I had this conversation today with somebody who, he and his wife, they're moving here from the Pacific Northwest. They might actually be in Snohomish County, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of this small world. But because they're moving across country, Scott, they want to be in one of the 55 and over communities in our area. And his wife thinks that she needs to be in there because there's going to be activities and things to do and things to be around other people. And, your neighborhood's a lot like mine. There's activities for all the age ranges going on all the time. And I keep trying to explain to them, you will make friends. They say, well, we don't know anybody. We won't know anybody. We think this is the best way for us to get to know people. What they don't understand and realize is once you move in, my wife and I, we moved at one point many, many times over a few years period. And when we moved in this couple of the different houses we were in, it wasn't uncommon to find the neighbors coming over and bringing us cookies. You see it on TV shows, and it happened. People showed up. Hey, I'm Joe. I live next door with my wife, Martha. We just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood. Here, we made you these chocolate chip cookies. We saw you had kids. Okay. That probably never happens up in Seattle area. I know it surely didn't in Pennsylvania where I grew up. Instead, you might get a finger along the way, but that's about it. But anyway, moving on. All right, so let's see. We have some more questions coming in here, guys, and I appreciate it. Keep them coming. This is awesome. Very awesome. All right, so James says, I got it. Thanks for sending me the stuff on impact fees. Good. Glad you like it. James wants to know. Oh, James also said, check out 810 Bowling and Billiards in Market Common. Yes, it's a great spot. They actually have one in the northern end and one out in Conway as well. But the one in Market Common as well as the one in North Myrtle Beach have probably one of your favorite places to go inside it, Scott. Would that be true?
Well, I've not been there yet. You're talking about the ice cream place that's in there? I've not been there yet. I've only seen it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
You haven't gone.
Nope.
Yes, so inside both 810s in North Myrtle and Market Common is the Crazy Mason.
Crazy Mason,
Has
yeah.
amazing milkshakes. They're crazy. It's crazy. They serve them in a mason jar, and like I went and I had a cookie dough explosion one, and it had so much cookie dough in it, and then a giant cookie on the top of it. One of the people that I was with, they had one with a unicorn on the top of it and candy and all this stuff. They have amazing milkshakes there. So Scott, you need to take Renee and
Oh,
Goes.
I'll check it out. Yeah.
Now here's a local tip for y'all. They open at 3:00. Get there right at 3:00, and the lines are much less. If you wait till halfway through the night, you're going to be waiting 45 minutes to an hour, 2 hours some days just to get a milkshake.
Crazy.
So, yeah, it's crazy, Crazy Mason. Let's see here. Oh, Ryan says, I'm from San Diego. Hey, Ryan. Hey, man, I texted you today. Text me back. Let me know how things are going. Ryan's ready to move here from California. Julie says, hey, she's from Hudson Valley. Nick jumped on here. He says he's from Hudson Valley. It's a little bit slower, a lot more friendly. Very true, Nick. Very, very true. Let's see here. GT, hey, Jeremy, wanted to let you know, really enjoy your live streams. Great info. Glad you're liking them. Hey, if you have questions, let us know. And they said, hoping to move to Pawleys Island soon. Hey, let me know how to help you with that. If you guys need help moving to the area, I'm not too busy. Somebody said that the other day, oh, we didn't want to bother you because we thought you might be too busy. I'm not. I can take it on and we can find you an awesome house here. Shoot me an email, info@jeremyblanton.com. Easiest way to get me, and I'll see what I can do to help you with it. So, Scott, we talked about your move. We talked about it. What was probably the biggest frustration that you had the whole way through the move? Whether it was just getting here with the drive, because you brought puppies with you as well. I remember seeing you kind of like do a road trip across the country, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think when you're moving that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Was that the most frustrating thing, or what was it you think in the whole process?
Yeah, I think if you're moving that far, and especially if you're using a moving company like we did, it's really challenging to line everything up, right? And what I mean by that is we had appliances that we bought that were going to be delivered. The moving company was going to show up on a certain day. Of course, closing date was on a certain day, and that got delayed by 2 days. We also lived in a hotel for a couple of days with our dogs.
That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. So lining all those things up, I mean, it's interesting. We ended up ordering a mattress from Costco that got delivered, and that was the first piece of furniture that we got, if you want to call it that. And that's what we slept on. So we slept in the hotel for a couple of days, closed on the house, moved in, didn't have some of our appliances, so we weren't fully functioning yet in terms of food, right? And so, but we got our mattress in, so we were able to have at least a soft place on the floor. We put the mattress just on the floor because our bed wasn't here yet to sleep on. So lining all of those things up when you're moving that far away is very tricky. A lot of moving parts. That's probably the most frustrating thing. But honestly, within 3 or 4 days, it was all behind us. Everything was here. And it was, at that point, was overwhelming, right? Because a big move like that, you got a lot of furniture, a lot of boxes to unpack and walls to paint and stuff to hang, and which I don't like that either. So that's another frustrating part. But yeah. So.
Well, painting must have been easier because there was nothing in the house, right?
So that's true. Very good point. Yeah, very good point.
I had somebody this past year who moved, and going back to supply chain issues, their refrigerator was delayed and they didn't have one, and they're in the house. They're here. They have all the other appliances. When you're buying new construction, these builders most of the time are not putting a refrigerator in the home. You have to buy one separately. And so they bought the house, went and then picked, as I tell people all the time, don't go open up major credit cards and things right before closing. If you're doing financing, you totally mess everything up. So they waited and did everything to get it after the fact. Well, they're in the house with nothing to put groceries in. So they ended up going over to, I think they went to Costco and bought just a small, little mini fridge, beer fridge. And that's what they used to live with for probably a week and a half, 2 weeks. out of this little mini fridge. So people I have found are good at adapting to things along the way for sure. So yeah, that must be tough though, because I know a lot of people are doing this from 600 miles, 400 miles away, where it's 8 to 10 hour drive. But you had how many days drive across the country to get here? So you had to really, really plan things out, I guess. Luckily, you have a wife, I think, that's extremely detailed oriented at
Oh yeah,
those things,
that's
which
right.
probably made your whole thing much easier. There was a question back here that I missed, and I want to go back a minute because where was? Oh, there was. Bob had asked this earlier. Sorry, Bob, I missed your question, but I'm coming back to get it for you. What's the difference between a seller's agent and a buyer's agent? So a seller's agent, it's simple. It's the person who's representing the agent selling the house, or the client selling the house. So they're the listing agent is another thing they're called. A buyer's agent is someone who's working on your behalf. They're representing you. They're making sure that you're getting good negotiations done, making sure everything is done. Any information that you share with them is kept private. Here in South Carolina, we have what's called customers or clients. Customers are self-represented. If Scott tells me he's a millionaire, I can tell everybody who's out there buying a house that he's trying to buy a house from, hey, listen, Scott's loaded. He's a millionaire. He's got tons of cash. Just wait out. He'll pay whatever you want because there's nothing else out there. But if Scott's my client, I don't say any of those things. Instead, I do my best job to negotiate the best price for him in the house. Now, as a client, you basically become stuck working with the person you sign up. As a customer, you're a free agent. You can go work with whoever you want, wherever you want, anywhere on the beach. But when you become a client, you're stuck with me. And the example I always use is this. If you don't like my shirt, which tonight's kind of a bluish green color, don't sign up as a client of mine, because there is a possibility the next time we meet, I might wear this same shirt again. And if it offends you so much now, I don't want you to have to see it again. That's kind of the long and short of it all. So hopefully that answers. And Bob, as we get closer to your purchase here, I will definitely go over that a lot more in detail over the next few weeks with you on that. All right, let's go back here and see what else. We have some other things. Julie said she's from close to West Point, New York. She also says everyone has been so amazing in Myrtle Beach, and that's why we're looking to build. Julie, we can try to build, and I will do my best to help you. Just know it's not an easy task right now with a lot of the builders. D.R. Horton, they're not even allowing you to customize the house. They're not allowing you to pick anything. They're releasing houses each week, and they basically call and say, hey, all of you that have been looking for an Eaton, one's being released in this neighborhood. If you want it, submit your offers, and we'll review them till tomorrow at noon and pick the one we want. So if you're waiting on that specific model in a specific neighborhood, just know there could be 10 other people submitting offers at the same time on that house tomorrow. And you could have been waiting for 3 months for that house on that lot to show up and not even get it at the end of the day. The other thing with building is time frames can be kind of all over the place right now. Timelines are getting all out of whack at times with stuff, and you could end up having all kinds of issues. And then the third thing with builders like D.R. Horton especially, you take the house the way they built it. If the house has blue shutters, a gray door, white cabinets, brown floors, and black counters, you're taking it that way. They're not allowing you to make any alterations because everything is ordered the minute that they break ground on that house. So just know it's not as easy as it used to be. In one of the developments here, it actually became very frustrating for one of my clients. They were one of 55 people who had a reservation in on a lot. And we put it in October. And then in February of last year, they came back and told us, we're not taking any more reservations. Everyone's money's being refunded, and we're becoming a spec home builder. So they lost everything. Not to mention, the builders are not putting prices a lot of times on the house until they hit drywall stage because they were losing so much money. So anyway, I'll get off that horse. Julie wants to know, you should do a live with your wives so us ladies can ask all the important questions. Best shopping boutiques, nail and hair salons, and spas. Julie, I will bring my wife on, but she will be zero help for you on those questions because she doesn't do any of those. My wife's very much 100% in mom mode, but I should bring her on. We'll do that in one of these weeks. Maybe I can get my mother to watch the kids, and I can bring her on for fun. Scott,
I got somebody for you for that, Jeremy, when you're ready.
All right, go ahead.
It's not my wife either. But I got somebody that would be good for that. Seriously. Yeah.
I think I know who you're thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they about to have a baby?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
I can get you that stuff though, Julie. I do have connections to those things and friends. But I have some friends. Let me think on that a little bit. I'll get you some. Actually, Julie, I know who to do with that. The next time I bring on Erica, she's the person to ask all those things. Erica is a lender that I work with over at Guild Mortgage, Scott. Just so you know.
Very cool.
She's Julie. Her website is thestylishlender.com. I think she can answer those questions pretty well for you. So, all right, let's move on here. Bob wants to know, Jeremy, you're going to answer. Oh, I already answered that. Okay, we answered that question. He answered again. Thanks for asking again, Bob, because I skipped it. All right, cool. So we've answered a bunch of things in here, it looks like. Scott, what other things did you want to talk about? You've moved here. Let's talk about this. So you work in Seattle still. Your businesses are there, obviously. So you're working remotely most of the time. When you're not working, though, what are the things that you and Renee love to go out and do in our area? I know you like to go and eat ice cream. You mentioned that earlier. But what are some of the other things that you guys just absolutely love about the Myrtle Beach area?
So we go running outside all the time and bike riding all the time. And when it's warmer weather out, we'll hang out at our pool or go to the beach. We love that same stretch of beach that you're talking about too. And I also love Surfside Beach. Those are kind of two of my favorite beaches to go to for different reasons. But so we do that. We do wine tasting. We love going to Broadway at the beach. It is fun when I go to Broadway at the beach. I feel like a tourist, though, right? Because it's mostly tourists that go there. But
my favorite activity there is tourist watching.
Yeah, for sure. There's people from everywhere.
It is the airplane going to the airport and watching people's fun. But at Broadway, it's like 100 times even more fun, I think.
Yeah. And then somebody told me that the Grand Strand has over 1,000 restaurants ish. And so that's a lot of different places that we can go explore. And so when we go to dinner, we like to try to choose different places. Last night we went to Rio's, which was for the first time. And that was a lot of fun. Before? What's that?
You had never been there before?
No. So that's a Brazilian steakhouse, by the way.
Yes.
Right next to Broadway at the beach.
Yep. And so Rio's during the month of January on Sundays had half price.
Yeah, that's why we went yesterday.
Yep. And they do it every year in the off season. Once again, businesses catering to the locals, half price meal menu on Sundays, usually when they do it in the off season. And they usually do it either January or February or sometimes both months that they will do it. But yeah, it's a great spot for that. I think the person who told you that was me about the restaurants. Did you know that in Myrtle Beach, we have enough restaurants you can eat for a year and a half and never eat at the same place twice? And that's probably an understatement now of the time it would take to do it, that there is that many restaurants here along the beach. And there's stuff constantly being opened up, new ones each and every day. It's insane how many are coming to the area all the time.
Yeah. So one thing that we haven't done enough of since we've been out here that we want to do more of, and it's easy to do here, is golf. So we've got to get our golf clubs out here because they're in Seattle still. But once we do, we're going to start hitting the ranges and getting out on the courses. So
do you at least go to Top Golf once in a while?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Top Golf is a blast for anybody. And here's the thing, if you're watching this and you're not a golfer, go to Top Golf anyway. You don't even need to have clubs. They have them there for you. It's a great place to go eat, hang out with friends and family, and have a fun time. And they have games that takes the most skilled golfer and the most amateur and levels the playing field almost instantly. It's so much fun and just a fun outing to do with people. So definitely you want to check that out. And, Scott, when you get those clubs here, we'll need to go because I'm a professional Army golfer.
Nice.
Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
An Army golfer goes left, right, left, right, left, right, all the way down the hole.
That's funny.
I make sure when I go to a golf course that I get my full value out of the round by seeing the entire golf course. All the woods and water and bunkers and every other part of it.
Everything, yeah.
I get to visit the whole course. It's probably
Nice.
the best way to put it. All right. Well, listen, we've been on here. Wow. It's 8:41. Time flies when we're having fun. So I see we have a ton of people still on. If you have questions, ask them now because we're going to wrap this up in the next couple minutes. I got to respect Scott's time because it's 5:41 Pacific time, and he probably has agents and people from the Pacific Northwest that have been trying to get him for the last hour and a half. Going, Scott, I need help, and I can't get him. So if you have questions, drop them right now. And, while they're doing that, Scott, is there anything else you wanted to kind of share with people about moving here, living here, renting houses here? You mentioned that. What else do you want to kind of say to everybody as we're wrapping up?
Well, I guess the last thing, another pro, I guess, going back to what Julie was asking earlier, and this just popped into my mind. The cost of living here overall is just cheaper, than a lot of places, including Seattle, where I came from. But restaurants, going to restaurants. Speaking of going out to eat last night, they just seem to be in general. Now, the big chain restaurants are still kind of normal price. But a lot of the local restaurants are way cheaper than what I'm used to paying in the Seattle market. And that was another very big pro and actually kind of shocking. I go to lunch and grab a beer with it. I'm spending less than what I'd spend for just the meal in Seattle. And so that was kind of a nice bonus. So yeah, if you're not from here, if you're not living here now and you're thinking about it, there's lots of pros and not too many cons. So.
Yeah. Gas prices here are way less as well.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned how much cheaper things are here. For those of you watching, Scott and I were both with RE/MAX. And so every year we take a trip to Las Vegas for our conference. And I remember the first year that I went to Vegas and I ordered a mixed drink and it was like $14 for just house brand vodka. It wasn't anything special. It was like $14. I was like, $14 for that thing here, half that price or less.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a whole lot more affordable here. Groceries are cheaper, gas is cheaper. Now the con to that definitely is kind of the obvious here is pays if you're needing to have a job when you get here is not going to be as high. School teachers, policemen, those type of jobs, they're making much more in the Northeast. When they move here, they have culture shock. I'm like, what? I'm only going to make this? Well, I was making twice that or 3 times that up in the Northeast. It's much less, but your cost of living is a lot less. And you're going to get a lot more house for the money here as well. I had a client moved here from Rhode Island. He had a house there. It was 1968. It was 1,200 heated square feet with the garage converted over to a bedroom. He sold that, moved here, moved into a D.R. Horton community of the parks, bought a 3,300 heated square foot house, brand new, with a half-acre lot in the back. It was massive. Got this huge house with this huge lot, and he dropped his payments $37 a month. Why? Taxes, instead of being $10,000 to $12,000 a year, dropped down to $1,200. So he had $10,000 a year of monthly payments going out that he could put towards the house payment. So you can get a house here that's a $400,000 home and have things much cheaper than a $400,000 up there. Mm-hmm. So, all All right, let's see. We have, let's see here. One more question coming in. Edward wants to know, can you represent me in a development that a builder is building, i.e. Mungo Homes? Yes, definitely I can, Edward, and I would recommend having someone represent you, even especially buying, I should say, in those new home developments. Why? That on-site agent, they're an amazing person. They're very friendly. They're very nice. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they represent the builder. They work on behalf of that builder. They're the ones that pay their paychecks each and every month. So while they're doing that, they're not representing you. That's why you need someone like me on your side to work there. In addition, when you're buying new construction, especially, there are walkthroughs that happen. You know, the week before closing, there's a final walkthrough where you're going to go through the house, and having an agent like myself there to help you do the punch list, walk that home. I've done hundreds of them over the last 20 years. I walk in the door, and while the superintendent's starting to go over, here's the warranty of this and that, I literally just go over and say, can I get a roll of tape? And I start walking the house and marking everything off to help make things go smoother and easier. But I know what to look for because I've done it so many times. And so having someone there, for my clients, we talked about earlier with the garage door issue, and they forced them to basically close that day. We went to the builder and we said, listen, this is not right. You're making them close on a house when it's not ready. They're not going to be able to stay there. They're not going to be able to put anything in the home because it's not secure. What are you going to do? And we were able to get them, I think it was like $1,800 off that the builder took out of a fee that they could, wiped it away to try to make up for the fact that they weren't closing on the day they were supposed to. If they didn't have an agent there representing them, working on their behalf, saying, hey, you screwed this up. You made my client forced to do it. And now, after all that, you're not ready. What are you going to do to compensate them? They would have gotten nothing. And the fact that I had to make a call, I actually had to call up the supply chain ladder of people that work there to find a supervisor for the area to get that discount for them. If they were on their own or just working with the on-site, they wouldn't have gotten anything. Because when we talked to the on-site agent, they said, well, sorry, this is the way it is. And I didn't accept that answer. So definitely, Edward, you want somebody to represent you even in the new construction. Anything, Scott? I know you do a lot of real estate. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that was very well said. Very, very well said. Yeah, you nailed it. So
okay, cool. Julie says, thank you so much. And then she said, keep the videos and lives coming. We will. Speaking of which, let me just kind of tease that. In 2 weeks for everyone, we're going to be back with the live. And I am bringing on Risa. Risa Best is the property manager for our real estate companies. One of the sister companies they have is a property management company. They handle long-term rentals only. So if you're thinking about moving to the area and need a place to rent, you can ask her questions about that and what to expect. And also, if you're thinking about buying that home for your future, whether that's an investment property, your retirement home or whatever, and you want somebody to rent it, this past year, I think I had 4 or 5 different people that I worked with that bought a home, put tenants in it for the next 2 to 3 years until they're ready to make the move here. They got the house at last year's prices, and they bought them in May or before May. I watched last year on this graph that I was showing earlier about average price point from May to October last year. Our average market saw a $22,000 price increase. So because they bought that home then, they basically put an additional $25,000 of equity in their pocket in a 6-month period of time. So we'll have a fun time talking with her about that. Edward says, thank you. James says, you guys are awesome. Thanks for all the information tonight. Awesome. Scott, listen, I appreciate your help tonight joining us. I appreciate all you shared. In case somebody who's watching this has a house up in the Pacific Northwest, who should they reach out to? Tell us the name of your company, and they can reach out to you directly, how they can get you. I know you don't sell, but you have a lot of amazing brokers and lenders and everything up there. Tell them how they can get a hold of you for if they need help in the Seattle area.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Scott Comey. So Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. So check me out there. But also you can email me scomey@remax.net. And I can put you in touch with any one of a number of agents depending upon your needs. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Scott, I really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hope you found value. If you did, do me a favor as you're leaving tonight. Smash the like button. And if you've not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel so that you can check things out in the future, get notified when new videos come out. I can tell you, this week I have a good video dropping on Thursday afternoon talking about living here versus vacationing here in Myrtle Beach. It's going to be a good one. It's a doozy. Y'all will enjoy it. And I will see you in 2 weeks back with Risa. Hope everybody has a great night. I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Take care.